Welcome to the Roost News, the place for all things volunteer. I am Lillian Lee, co-lead for the Roost News, and I am so excited to have Mary Beth Dixon and Adam Goldberg join us today. Mary Beth is the senior advisor, and Adam is the senior legislative representative for the National Retired Teachers Association. So thank you for being on the Roost News podcast.
Lillian, thank you so much for having us.
Yes, thank you.
The National Retired Teachers Association, NRTA, AARP's educator community empowers educators nationwide to champion their financial and health security through advocacy, collaboration, information, and advancing volunteer engagement. The Retired Educator Associations are nationwide network of retired school personnel, including 50 state affiliates, more than 2,700 locals. We're going to learn more about that description in just a few minutes, but first, I would love for Mary Beth and Adam to share a little bit about themselves. Why NRTA? Why work for AARP? Mary Beth, we'll start with you.
Sure, thanks. I have worked with AARP for 20 years, and it was just the dream job for somebody who was primed to do group organizing. People who are 50 plus are often home during the day, and that took away the nighttime group organizing sessions I was doing. But better yet, like the volunteers really are such a high caliber. I have never worked with anyone like them before. And then I switched about 11 years ago to NRTA, AARP's educator community. I was so excited. We all know the history that Ethel founded NRTA first, and it was just such an exciting next step for me.
Okay,
And,
Adam.
yeah, and like Mary Beth, I have been with AARP for over 20 years.
Wow,
I
okay.
started in the government affairs department. I came from a consumer organization where I lobbied on the federal level for consumer issues. And I came here to work on the state level, doing
Great.
consumer issues, working with AARP state offices. And I was in government affairs for over 16 years before I
Wow.
moved over to NRTA, where I now do similar work with the retired educators associations and our members and our state offices. And I just really felt when I came here that this was an organization that was really doing something to help people. And
Great.
I wanted to more directly do that than I was able to do in my previous job because, as Mary Beth mentioned, we have all of our volunteers who are really wonderful. And I've gotten a chance over the years to work with them and interact with them in a way that I didn't in my previous job. So it's been really satisfying.
Great. Well, I know the volunteers who are listening, thank you for making those comments because I am a volunteer and I've been a volunteer for almost 10 years now. And actually, about a couple of years ago, I found out about NRTA as far as being a part of the National AARP office. So this is wonderful. Please share the story of how NRTA got started. We mentioned briefly, or Mary Beth did, Dr. Ethel Percy Andrews. So one of you get started on telling that story, just briefly, of course.
Yeah, let me start because I want to turn it over to Mary Beth to give most of the story, and you'll find out why in a moment. But Ethel Percy Andrews, who did found NRTA, was a school teacher and then later the first female school principal in California. And one of the things that she did was after she retired, got involved working with retired educators. And the reason I want to turn it over to Mary Beth is a couple of years back, Mary Beth spearheaded a project for NRTA to put together a video talking about the history of NRTA and Ethel Percy Andrus and all of the things that were behind her founding this organization. And I'd like to, Mary Beth, to talk a little bit about that because that video that she spearheaded putting together for us ended up becoming an award-winning video.
Wonderful.
I'd like to toot her horn on this because she was the one who was behind the project, and we are all very proud of that video. And so, Mary Beth, if you could talk a little bit about that video and NRTA's history that's shown in that video, I think it would be really great.
Yeah, no, thanks. Just to go back to the story, the heart of the story, Dr. Andrus had retired and she had an early retirement. She had been caregiving her mother, who had this miraculous recovery against all odds. And so she had time on her hands and she was working as a volunteer, not as an employee, but as a volunteer with the California Retired Teachers Associations. I believe it was actually at that point the Southern California Retired Teachers Association. She did a visit to somebody who she was told was living in a chicken coop. And very much to her surprise, she found that this person was living in a chicken coop. The retired educator couldn't afford more, and she was so incensed by what she found that she went on to come up with this amazing vision of what we have today and then what ends up becoming the format for AARP. So she decides what she's going to do is coordinate all the states together, the state retired educator associations, and harness that power in one big group. And so the video that Adam mentioned won a Telly Award. It's great. It is on YouTube. It is a 6-minute inspiring story, first about Dr. Andrus's life as an educator and all the amazing things she accomplished, but then what I really love about that story is the spin on it, because it goes into, even after this amazing career, she goes on to do something even greater than that career. She goes on to found NRTA and then, as the Retired Educators Associations, and brings them all together, and goes on to, from there, to found AARP 11 years later. And that's on YouTube for anyone who wants to take a look at it. NRTA has a YouTube page. Lillian, I know that you have a section on resources that we'll get to, but I just want to mention where that is.
Right. Wonderful, wonderful. Yes, Dr. Percy Andrus was a phenomenal woman in working in her quest to help teachers, educators. Wow, that was, it's always a heartwarming story when you hear about it. And we want to continue to spread the word that this is how AARP and NRTA got started. I know that there was a merger in 1982 for NRTA to become a division of AARP. How did that come about?
Well, what happened, as Mary Beth pointed out, is Dr. Andrus founded NRTA and really began to help retired educators with things like getting health insurance, which was so difficult for that woman in a chicken coop to decide between rent for a decent place and health insurance. And Dr. Andrus was making a difference at that. So 11 years later, she got the idea that she could do the same thing for a broader audience of retired folks. So she founded AARP to do, as Mary Beth has said, something very similar to what she had started with NRTA. And as we all know, AARP became very successful at serving retired folks. And as you can imagine, AARP eventually became a much bigger organization than NRTA because the audience was a much bigger audience.
Right.
So in the 80s, AARP brought NRTA into the AARP house.
Yes.
Yeah. So we have been continued on as part of AARP as with that. And that continued on until about 10 years ago. NRTA was its own separate individual entity. And then we came into the Office of Community Engagement because we work with retired educators, and who is such a great community leader but retired educators. And they really found that moving us into the Office of Community Engagement was really beneficial for our community approach.
Yes, wonderful. Well, let's fast forward to 2026. What does AARP's NRTA look like in action today? What is the purpose of this division, and how many staff implement these actions?
Sure.
Let me just start by saying there are 4 of us, Mary Beth and I, and our director, Al Campos, along with some administrative help, and it's more than just administrative help from Mona Martinac. So there are 4 of us on our team. We also have a communications consultant that we can tap into. And as you can see on the screen, I do advocacy. Mary Beth does some outreach, and Mary Beth, why don't you talk a little bit more
Yep.
about who we are and what we look like in action?
So Adam went through just encapsulating our what it feels like a very small, little, tiny staff team, both because the Retired Educators Associations. So we have the Retired Educator Associations, which were, as we mentioned, Dr. Andrus originally founded us on these state associations with this kind of consortium of state associations. And in addition to that, we also have retired educators who are not affiliated at all with an association. We know that membership trends have changed over the years, and we have plenty of retired educators who continue to be community anchors, be amazing leaders, giving out good information and resourcing organizations that they're working with, but they're not necessarily affiliated with their Retired Educator Association. And then there are also the government workers. So a lot of times we refer to NRTA, but there's also state government workers who also take advantage of the same kind of pension benefits that teachers do. So they are also a part of our family. Now, it's interesting, if I can I jump to the volunteer question, Lillian?
Is that the one where we're going to talk about who your audiences are?
Well,
Yes, that I was going to say perfect lead into it because I know you do and do not have volunteers. You have volunteer leads, so a good segue to that. Please go ahead.
Thank you. So we have a different structure than AARP does. So at AARP, and I love that this is an internal podcast. So at AARP, we think about trying to recruit volunteers and get them into the system. In NRTA, we have an entirely different world because educators are leading and they're doing the volunteer activities already. So if you ask them to sign up as a volunteer, they get confused and they ask, why should I sign up? And you say, well, you can do all of these things. And they're like, I'm already doing all of these things. So we have what AARP considers just millions of episodic volunteers that are continuing to give back. Now, they are not on the books like AARP volunteers are because they just are continuing to do what they do. We are, since we've come into the Office of Community Engagement, we have taken a role with the AARP state offices to more intentionally work together to bring in retired educators as part of the state office volunteer corps, which is quite interesting because retired educators so much identify as educators that they oftentimes miss the messaging from the state office that's targeting the general population that brings in so many other people because they're so focused on their careers as educators. They still identify as educators. So we're working with the state offices to bring in volunteers, educators to become state office volunteers. And that's been a little bit more intentional in the last 10 years.
Yeah. And if I could add to that, one of the things that we're starting to do here at AARP is do a lot more at the local level. And one of the things that I'm working on with government affairs, we mentioned that we only have 4 of us at NRTA, but the reason it works is we have all of these great collaborators across the organization. And as I said, I used to work in government affairs, so I have a very close relationship with the folks there. And one of the things that we are doing more and more is local level advocacy. And a lot of that is coming out of the Office of Community Engagement in concert with our colleagues across the organization, particularly state offices. And in terms of recruiting volunteers, as Mary Beth said, to work with the state offices, the one thing that I'd like to put a little plug in for here is that we are now, as I say, doing much more at the local level and doing local level advocacy. And I would love it if educators volunteered more specifically on those projects. And I would say that certainly we would welcome any educator reaching out to us to find out what they can do with their state offices. We have speakers bureaus, which are very much like educating audiences, which would be really fantastic. And we'd be happy to connect retired educators or even educators who are still working but would like to volunteer to
Mhm.
that sort of thing. But I also want to put in that plug for the local level advocacy that we are starting to do more and more of. A lot of that is related to housing and transportation, but we're starting to do more work on fraud and other things. And so if any of your listeners or viewers are interested in doing that, really, we would welcome them reaching out to find volunteer opportunities for them.
Great, great information, and those opportunities are available. And so a lot of people don't realize that. The volunteers that are listening to this podcast, they may know others. They may know a lot of educators who are willing or need to receive the information that you're sharing today. So this is good information to share. And you talked a little bit about collaborations. I was going to transition into that. So as far as collaborations with other organizations, what other organizations, other than the ones you mentioned, are you collaborating with at this time or you want to build a collaboration with
Yeah.
or
Well,
partnership, some people call it?
well, internally, I will say that our state offices are really, really great partners for us.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, our government affairs team, for me, particularly on advocacy issues, it's great working with them. We
Mm-hmm.
also have, as some of the folks who are watching this may be aware, a public policy institute, which is very much sort of like an internal think tank. That's not necessarily the way they would describe themselves, but that's the way I like to think of them
Okay.
because they do a lot of thinking, a lot of writing, a lot of research, and they're really, really helpful in terms of providing us with information about trends or what's going on,
Mm-hmm.
uh, deep on issues like Social Security and other things.
Very good.
We've got a great research department. Mary Beth, I know you work with a lot of folks here across the association, and we try to partner with anyone outside that we can.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll just add to that. We are so lucky. I know AARP is honoring Detective Matt Hogan, but most recently for our fraud event that we just did a national webinar joining all of AARP in April's Fraud Awareness Month.
Great.
Um, we actually were very lucky through Francois Cleveland in the Government Affairs Department to work with Detective Matt Hogan, who AARP is going to give a very prestigious award to. So he was really on the forefront of the crypto kiosk fraud.
Yes, yes.
And we're just so thrilled to have very kind, prestigious people like Detective Hogan, who are
Mm-hmm.
always willing to kind of lend a hand to get the word out and leverage our network of educators.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
that's
and
interesting. Yes, go
Lillian,
ahead.
sorry to interrupt.
No, no.
Earlier we mentioned pensions. I just wanted to also put in a plug for one of our outside organizations because we talk mostly
Yes.
internal, but I did want to mention, for instance, we work with the National Institute on Retirement Security,
Yeah,
and
that's
they
good.
participated with us on podcasts and webinars before. And they provide a lot of information state by state about pensions because I know retired educators, their top advocacy issue would be their pensions, and that makes a lot of sense. I'm trying to get you all interested more in caregiving and other legislative issues. But pensions are number one, and the National Institute on Retirement Security, or NERS, is a big partner. And Mary Beth mentioned the webinar that she did with Matt Hogan. I just
Mhm.
want to also put in a plug. We have a studios department here, and
Okay.
so we were able to do our webinar
Hmm.
using our studios to produce something that really looked great. And on the fraud one, it really was fantastic. So if anyone has a chance to go back and look at it, I highly recommend it. You'll learn a lot.
Wonderful. Yes, Mary Beth, you mentioned cryptocurrency, and we are having a podcast coming up very soon on that issue, looking at a couple of states who are putting legislation in place for that. We've done scams and frauds before. So those topics are definitely on the forefront and are needed for not just the volunteers and the educators, but for everyone to listen to those types of podcasts. So thank you for bringing that in. May 4th through the 8th was Teacher Appreciation Month this year, and I hope I have those dates correct. Did you all do anything special or make note of that from your particular office?
Oh, thank you so much, Lillian. Teacher appreciation as well as back to school time is really such a special
Mhm.
time for NRTA,
Mhm.
as well as it is for retired educators. So during Teacher Appreciation Week, we know in the schools, people, parents, probably many people on this call are organized to do something to recognize and appreciate their retired educators. What we try to do around that time period is make people aware again of that video about
Mhm.
the history of NRTA. But this year we did do something special. We started a project to collect stories, the local impact stories of what retired educators continue to do in their community. And we're trying to take a really concentrated effort to elevate people, elevate those retired educators, and we're going to continue doing that from our season this year is teacher appreciation through back to school. And so we really try to do a lot. I just wanted to share another little bit, if you'll allow me.
Oh, go ahead.
Retired educators for back to school, they really celebrate back to school. It's a social time for them, a time to get together back with their colleagues, but they don't just use it as a time to get together and have fun. They will do service projects, from warm, light touch service projects like
Mhm.
waving to the bus drivers and giving them a box of donuts on the first day of school and bringing in treats for the teachers, to much larger service projects like in that time period in July when we start seeing the back to school sales with
Mhm.
the crayons and the pencils and the pens, as they will purchase backpacks and stuff them and donate them to communities in need. They'll, collect the extra Kleenex boxes for the families that aren't able to afford to buy those. So they really are working at filling in the gaps in our community, especially with inflation rising so much. We know that that is an even important thing for them to be doing now. So it's a time of a very festive time, a reunion time, a time to celebrate retirement. But they continue giving back and fulfilling every effort that they can for the schools communities even today. So even I've heard about people knitting mittens, like in northern.
Yes, oh, definitely. Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
it's
that's
just.
great because, as a retired administrator, educator, giving back was important to us, and to make sure that all the needs of the students were met is important. And as educators, we always thank the community for supporting us in
Yeah.
those efforts, whether it's Teacher Appreciation Week or back to school. Yeah, so thank you for sharing that. That's important, very important. And, as I think about your NRTA, you mentioned something about resources a little bit earlier. Did you have any more
Mhm.
resources that you would like to share?
Sure. So we have the YouTube channel that I mentioned before.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we have, if you just go onto YouTube and type in NRTA AARP's educator community, it will come up. That channel has a whole bunch of really great videos on it. It's got the video about NRTA's origins. It's got 3 different versions, a 6 minute, a 1 minute and a 30 second. Those are available for any state offices or anybody within AARP, the AARP family, to use. In addition to that, we have some feature stories about what educators continue to do giving back. We have one specifically about an educator in Arkansas who worked with her local community to create a food bank, a food and clothing bank in her school. As she was retiring, she knew that there was this need. So her Retired Educator Association is in a rural area. They took on this project and they continue to support the community that way. But I wanted to mention, still on the topic of back to school,
Mm-hmm.
we will have 2 new national virtual programs that we are producing for everyone. So those will be available and those will be coming out. The next one Adam might talk about is going to be about voter engagement. That's around back to school. And
Mm-hmm.
then for the caregiving blitz, the one that I will be organizing will be around Medicare for caregivers, because we know Medicare is so incredibly confusing, and we can use as much help as we can get. Adam,
Yeah,
did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I do. And I'll talk about the videos and then remind me if I forget to talk about some of the other materials we have. As Mary Beth mentioned, we do have a couple of different things coming up related to the back to school, the fall period, where we're going to provide some information
Mm-hmm.
through webinars that would be really interesting to I think your viewers. Mary Beth mentioned the caregiving one that she is going to be leading. I am doing one on voter engagement, which will be
Good.
on September 30th. AARP has always done a lot of great work to provide information about when, where, and how to vote. We've done forums for candidates and communities and so on. And we'll be
Mm-hmm.
talking about that with our colleagues in our campaigns department who do our voter engagement work. I also did want to mention, although it's not related to the fall sort of back to school thing, we are going to be doing an online virtual advocacy conference at the end of July, and we'll be putting out information about that in the next 3 or 4 weeks. But
Mm-hmm.
that will be on July 22nd, where we'll talk about some issues like pensions, caregiving, the local advocacy that I mentioned, and a little more on voter engagement. And those are really great opportunities for your viewers to learn in depth about some of the issues
Yes.
that matter to us and matter to you. But then I did also want to mention, in terms of resources, what I had mentioned the National Institute on Retirement Security. We partnered with them and have partnered with them for many years to
Mm-hmm.
do fact sheets, which we update periodically. And these are fact sheets state by state that provide information about the pensions that public employees get, including educators. And it's not only about the pensions themselves, but it's about the economic impact of
Mm-hmm.
those pensions
Mm-hmm.
in a state. Because the money that retired educators and retired public employees get from their public pensions
Mm-hmm.
is something that multiplies throughout their communities as they spend it. So it has a massive economic impact on their communities. And so we do these fact sheets not only so that you can know about this, but that if there's some reason to be advocating in your state legislature to
Mm-hmm.
either protect or extend your pensions, to have that kind of information that will really resonate with a state legislator. And that's on our website. We also have some information there about how to advocate, how to reach out, and so on. Um, and then the other thing that I want to mention in terms of a resource is just that people should know, and I hope they know from this conversation, that Mary Beth and I and our boss Al Campos, we are resources as well.
Yes.
And we are very happy to be working with the Retired Educators Associations, our state offices, and as Mary Beth mentioned, all of those individual educators out there who may not identify or are affiliated with their Retired Educators Association, but are AARP members or even not members who can take advantage of, for instance, our webinars that we're doing or the opportunities to volunteer. So I just want folks to understand that Mary Beth and I are a resource to you as well.
Wonderful. Wow. You have a lot of resources. So if they go to aarp.org, they can click on that first and then search for NRTA's information. Is that correct? Would that work?
They can, and I will tell you this, a little preview of things. We do have a page on the internet for NRTA. We are updating that. We're not there
Excellent.
yet, but we're going to update it over time here soon. So hopefully we will do a better job at providing even more resources than we
More,
do.
well, great. And that sort of leads into my almost last question, and that is I was thinking, what are you anticipating doing in the future? You've sort of already answered some of that. Uh, and when you're looking at the volunteers on the state level, do you send information directly to the 53 state offices of AARP to let them know what you're doing? Is that the way you email
Yeah.
them or it's in a newsletter? How do the state offices know about your programs?
It's a great question, Lillian, and we've done different things. In AARP time, 10 years in the Office of Community Engagement is not really that long. So
Right.
We've tried different things. Most recently in this past year,
Mm-hmm.
it was really exciting. During state planning, we asked state offices,
Okay.
would you like to collaborate with NRTA
Mm-hmm.
to engage educators as new engagers? Educators, like our data analytics group shows that educators are 90% likely to be new engagers.
Mm-hmm.
So we asked state offices that question through the state planning process. We
Yes.
had 33 come back and say yes.
Oh, good.
Um,
Okay.
so we have been
Over
working with
half.
yep, over half.
Mhm.
We've been working with those state offices with the designated person who has asked in a very concentrated way around projects that they want to work with. So we have just started a system in place to reach out to those people. Now, what we found is that, when you hear about a good thing, other people are interested. Other state offices have raised their hand and said, we also would like to know more and
Great.
hear more and be on your list. So we do share that out and are developing that list more. If anybody is in an office and wants to be on that list, you can let us know and we will add you to that list. In addition to that, NRTA sends out a publication called In the Know. It is our newsletter that goes out to retired educators and anybody who really wants to be on the list.
Right.
Kelly Keneally on our team maintains that list.
Good.
So if anybody wants to receive that, they are very welcome to do that.
Great. Great. Well,
Yeah.
thank you for that.
Yeah,
Yes.
let me just also mention, Mary Beth is talking about all of those sorts of resources, but after more than 20 years here for both of us, we are a resource for our state offices as well. And we meet with them, talk with them all the
Great.
time to
Great.
communicate about what we're doing and hear about what they're doing and to work with them as much as we
Right.
can.
And
Well,
then the other, I'm sorry,
go
one,
ahead.
just those webinars.
Yes.
The
Yeah.
Yes.
webinars that we're doing are also, that is a new thing for us. It's so exciting
Okay.
in the event repository. If anybody wants to see the webinars that we're doing on a national level, we've been doing one every quarter
Mm-hmm.
under the guidance of our Vice President, Brad Anderson.
Okay.
So if somebody just types in AARP events, you'll
Mm-hmm.
find our events on the event repository. And then the other thing
Okay.
that I want to mention that we do, we can add anybody on to this list as well, but we do a quarterly call out to the Retired Educator Association leadership.
Okay.
So not a
Very good.
newsletter, but what it does is it gives us a chance in real time, kind of like AARP's government affairs call on Mondays, to share what's happening at AARP that their association might be interested in, as well as give them an opportunity as leaders. You as a principal will appreciate the importance of being able to have access to peers and problem solve as a leader, but as leaders problem solve, specific organizational issues amongst each other, as well as share those amazing best practices and get those
Well,
out to others.
yes, this is wonderful. And we thank you. Thank you for what you're doing on behalf of the retired educators. And as we bring closure to the podcast, is there anything else you'd like to share? Because you all have a wealth of resources, a wealth of information for our volunteers and staff, and I know they are going to be appreciative when they listen to this podcast. But is there anything else that you'd like to share?
Well, I have two things.
Okay,
One is my thanks to you, Lillian. Like, this has just been such a pleasure to be on
great.
here.
Thank you.
And then the other one is just a small gift for all of us, just to think about Dr. Andrus and really the legacy that she left for us, like just how amazing that is. And it's just sometimes we get so busy in like the day-to-day stuff of things, like the hourly stuff of things, we don't ground ourselves in that story and how inspiring it is to be part of that legacy. So just to, reflect on that is a gift
Thank
for
you.
all of us.
Yes.
And to expand on that again, I'd also like to thank you, Lillian, for inviting us. This has been really fantastic for us
Wonderful.
to talk to your viewers, to talk about what we're doing, and hopefully provide them with an opportunity to know who to reach out to if they'd like to get involved in some of the stuff that we've done. But as Mary Beth pointed out, this is about Dr. Andrus's legacy. And her legacy was working to support first retired educators
Yes.
and to provide some assistance to them to help them live better lives. And that's what we continue to do, which is why I say Mary Beth and I and Al Campos, our director, are resources that you can reach out to if you'd like to get involved to help us help educators.
Well, wonderful. And thank you for this informative podcast. To staff and volunteers, we encourage you to subscribe to the Roost News Podcast channel on YouTube and or listen to the audio version on your favorite platform. And of course, please invite your colleagues to join us too. If you have a story to share, let us know. And on behalf of the Roost News Podcast, we thank you.
Thank you. What a pleasure.